Welcome everyone to Up the Ladder podcast. This is Dr. Endel with Westerville Chiropractic Nutrition, and we have Angela today, post Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
It is Tuesday as we're recording this, and this is a very timely discussion because I ate entirely way too much over the weekend. But today we are going to be talking about our 6-week weight loss and transformation program. We are launching a new group of people over the next week or two. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 classes, one later this week and one early next week, where people can, tune in, learn about the nuts and bolts of the program. And we've done a previous podcast on what makes the program so successful. But today we want to talk about accountability, why that's important, how that's part of the program and process. But for people who haven't heard the previous program, let's first of all dig into just a general kind of broad overview of what it entails and go from there.
Okay. I agree. Timely. It's timely. The seasons are changing. We're wrapping up summer and we're moving into autumn time. And I find it significant as the seasons begin to change. I like to think about the leaves and how trees are about to shed and release because they're going to make room for new growth. So this is a great time as you're getting into your new rhythm of routine, whatever that might look like right now, and just really finding some time we're all too good at, those of us, who are nurturers, we're so good at pouring out, and then finding ourselves fatigued or finding ourselves not really being able to pour back, in. So this is a really great time for that. And I'll give you, a broad overview of what this program looks like and why it's so successful.
Just to tune in or kind of chime into that, this is a transition period, right?
Yes.
So, like New Year's comes around, everyone looks at the new, reevaluates what's going on.
Right.
This holiday and the transition from summer to fall, people are hopefully reevaluating their schedules, number one, because I know, at least for my family, we've got sports practices and schedules. We've got school now that's either started the last couple weeks or this week. A lot of schools are starting. And so, because that looks so different for everyone right now, we're having to evaluate, all aspects of life.
Right.
And so it's a perfect opportunity to capitalize on that.
Yes.
And say, I need to, I want to block out, carve out this chunk of time for myself.
Yes.
And so like you said, it's usually the nurturers who, for the past, I don't even know what day we're on of COVID, but 6 or 9 months at this point, so many people have been taking care of everyone else, figuring out the kids, figuring out, kind of how to manage all of that. Now, through this process, we want to encourage all of the people in that category to really take a step back and say, it's not selfish to say, I need to take care of me right now also, right? It's needed, right? Put your face mask on first, and, take care of yourself through all of this. So the transitions, the change of seasons, the change of schooling, the change of everything, it's a great way to anchor in new habits and patterns and try to strive to make those changes. So,
and you made a really good point about kind of the upside downedness of things and where they sit and why this space and time is so pertinent. Where you mentioned we've been in hibernation. Usually, fall leads to winter, leads to more hibernation, but we've been in that hibernation mode.
That's right. Normally people are more active, they're traveling, they're and people have been out and walking and being more active, but mentally we've still been kind of on lockdown, and certainly the physiological response to that has been fight or flight, protect, lockdown, conserve, and so as we're heading into the normal time when our bodies would naturally do that even more, we have to be, I guess, extra careful on, and not careful as much as intentional,
right,
about what that looks like and supporting our bodies through this transition, and not just physically, which is what we're gonna, which is the 6-week program. There's a physical component, and that's where people normally start with is, I want to, physically, I want to lose 20 pounds. Right? That's kind of our gold standard is we expect pretty much everyone to lose 20 pounds in this program. There's a couple exceptions to that with hormone replacement and, certain hormonal issues. However, that's our expectation. That's people's expectations coming in, is a physical change.
Right.
I want to drop inches. I want to drop pounds. However, what we're going to talk about today is more of the mental change.
Yes.
And that happens over those 6 weeks and locking in and moving into where people are maintaining that weight.
That's right.
And a lot of that comes from accountability. And so let's start with, there's 3 phases, correct?
Yes, so there's 3 phases. There is a loading phase, there's a losing phase, and then there is a locking in phase, the maintenance phase. And then why we really love this is because, again, load is really fun, and it's really important. Load is to be taken extremely seriously, as a matter of fact, because the better the load, the better the loss. And by that time, it's funny, you just talked about, Labor Day weekend and eating too much. There's two aspects of this. Number one is I'm seriously fed up. I can't eat another thing, and I'm just so ready to eat something that's good for me. Right. And then the other thought is that it definitely tricks your body's metabolism, because most of us are not used to eating, 5,000 calories a day for 2 days. Yes, I said 5,000. And, not drinking any water and doing the reverse of what I'm going to tell you once we hit lose.
Right.
So losing phase. And then the most important, most crucial part is definitely the locking down phase. So it's interesting because change and transformation really requires us to stretch, to grow, and to become completely uncomfortable. And I think that's why this works so well, is because what we usually look for is we look for that, I'm comfortable here, I feel safe here, I feel good, and we know that the body feels safe at a specific weight, and that's called the metabolic set point theory. So what we do here is it's really just leaning in and partnering with your body and understanding that it does need to feel safe. So this program creates a safety all the way through to a new metabolic set point that becomes now your new safety zone, which happens to be 20 pounds less than your original safety zone. So it's really unique in that. And it's all done with real food first. And that's what we love about this program, is that, we are making sure that this is a springboard to a lifestyle change completely. Just learning how to eat and what to eat and what is good for me, and implementing anti-inflammatory foods and low glycemic foods, things that are going to help us establish a healthy blood sugar balance, and all around just good feeling of well-being.
Yeah. Well, and I think it would be really interesting to do a search on what other people are searching for, because I think people are craving change in their health status.
Yes.
Right? The last 6 months has brought, these underlying health issues that we have kind of pushed aside up to the forefront of everyone's mind, because they are at more risk when they're overweight, when they're obese, when they're metabolically not healthy, when they're, pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Yes.
And what initially drove us to this program, prior to all of this, was that there are ways to change that in a healthy way that involves, like you said, real food.
Yes.
And it's not just a packaged, slim down, get quick, lose 15 pounds quick.
That's right.
Sort of program.
Yes.
It really is a lifestyle change where you're going to learn what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, how to prepare food.
That's right.
Right? There's good and bad in that. Right? It's, I always tell people it's simple but not easy.
Right.
And so that's why, because the concepts are simple, it is, you can transfer it to forever.
Yes,
right?
it's so sustainable.
The
exactly. It's the concepts. And again, that becomes, you give yourself that time and you start to feel very differently about things too, because, what we found not to be, or what to be a little bit uncomfortable before, actually gives us room to actually enjoy our food a little bit more, and understanding the differences, and understanding that, sometimes it takes just as much time to prepare a meal as it does to go through the drive-through and get some, subpar tasting, non-nutritionally dense, food that's not really even feeding us actually. Right. So, it's interesting because I usually sit down with people and I say, we're really overweight because we're starving. And the truth is like, I think about McDonald's, or I think about going through that drive-through, and you have to realize that, what you are eating isn't providing anything that your body can use at that moment. There's no nutritional density. As a matter of fact, your body is eating things that it can't recognize on its own as food. And so it has to do what it knows to do best to protect you, and to stuff that kind of things into fat cells where you're not, you're not susceptible to the toxins that are inside that food. So most people are overweight really because they're starving, because they're not being fed. Their food is not feeding them. And now your food can feed you.
Yes. So we've got the 3 phases, and I think what is always most amazing to me is, people come through, like I get the opportunity for a lot of them to, see them after they've been in for a consultation with you throughout their 6 weeks. And, it's always amazing to me at some of the conversations that you have had through those 6 weeks. So first of all, the program is custom tailored, right? There's a framework, there's kind of a backbone for, the guidelines that people are supposed to adhere to be successful in the program. However, it's all individualized to fit the person.
Yes.
Right? So their physical, emotional, mental, all of that, all of that work that needs to be done actually happens in one-on-one consultations.
Yes.
We're not mailing out a kit of or emailing you a list of what to eat and what not to eat. It starts with the consultation with you on understanding their goals, figuring out, what their priorities are.
Right.
And, really making sure that it's a good fit for them, and finding out how coachable they are, right? We talk about this with my kids is, mom and dad don't know anything, right?
Oh no.
But how coachable, are you being coachable right now? Right.
Right.
You know, how coachable is someone in wanting that? So walk us through, what does, you know, the first visit and you know, some of those guidelines on as far as, you know, what you're looking for when you're working with somebody, but more importantly, what do the week-to-week consultations look like?
Right. So there definitely is that, you know, measure of physical success. We make sure that week by week we're measuring, you know, we're measuring inches lost, we're measuring, you know, we're taking, you know, your weight down, and then we're talking about any obstacles, any self-limiting beliefs or talks or anything that could be standing in our way, because there is so many layers. There's so many layers to us understanding who we are and where we have come from. And had we gotten here by any other way, we just wouldn't be who we are. So there is this letting go, there's this releasing. So when we have to think about, you know, losing parts of ourselves or you know, what that means, you know, and they're very subconscious thoughts, but really being able to honor and say, you know, thank you so much for bringing me here to this point where we are right now, but I've got you. And that's that whole new safety zone, right? We just want to feel safe. I got you. You're okay. I can take it from here. You served me up until this point. Let me serve you back. Yeah. You know, and it's just a beautiful dance that starts to take place while somebody makes changes and transformations, because, you know, you're definitely going to learn so much and you're going to come out different, for 100% different for sure. Yeah. So does that mindset encourage and validate the different?
Yeah. Well, I've heard you say before, it's not just weight that's weighing us down.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
No.
So walk us through what that really means.
So, you know, and I also talk about like what's weighing on you, right? You know, weight is not just so much in pounds as it is in what are we carrying around with us? Sometimes a good question is, who are you carrying around with you? What thought processes are you carrying around with you? You know, do you feel that you are deserving and worthy of success and change and health? Did you come in with a set of shame? Because, you know, you were giving some of those stats before, and I think that, you know, those things really weigh on our mind. You know, well, you know, I'm pre-diabetic, and you think of those things and they're internalized and they're not necessarily positive thoughts. You know, as a matter of fact, we may come in just because we're coming in, we already feel like there's something inherently wrong. If we're coming in, something's wrong. That's not necessarily right? And I'll tell you why. Because, you know, shame serves no one anywhere. Because what shame does is shame tries to tell you that who you are is wrong, and who you are is not wrong. Who you are is never wrong. Who you are has always been right. And that type of sabotaging shame is actually the catalyst that prevents us from being able to create change. So it's very important, first of all, to take that off. You know, the second that, you know, and sometimes that takes work. We're so used to carrying it around, we don't know what it feels like not to feel that, right? So we talk about that's the kind of weight that we're really carrying around, right? Those are the things that, you know, we need to let go of, that no longer serve us, that are going to stand in the way, or they're going to serve the opposite. You know, it's going to stand in the way of us achieving, you know, everything we really deserve to achieve.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what does when somebody comes in, we talk about, you know, normally we just said it's normally a physical change that they want to see. How do you look at tying those two things together?
Because they cannot be separated. And this is why I do what I do. So the whole idea of holistic is mind, body, spirit. And not one can be severed from the other. I mean, you know, you've been with you from the second that you were, you know, born into the earth, right? So it's interesting. And it's when we try to separate that, our mind from the body, from the spirit, is actually when we get in trouble. And I always ask people to think of a three-legged stool, right? Think of a three-legged stool, name one leg mind, body, and the other one spirit. So if I sever one of those legs off, if I sever the mind off from our transformative process, what's going to happen to the stool?
Yeah, it'll fall.
It's going to fall over. It's not going to be able to do what it was originally intended to do, carry the amount of weight that it was originally intended to. And the other two counterparts can't be as strong as they could have been without that other piece there holding up the rest.
Sure.
So did I answer that question?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. So why have check-ins every week?
Okay, because we all face, that goes back to the riding the bike thing, but yes. So why check in? Accountability, right? Or I like to call it just leaning in and encouraging, because the truth is that we all need someone. And the reason is I want you to think back to the first time you ever learned to ride a bike, or the first time that you ever taught your kids to ride a bike, or this is great. So my first car, which was an amazing 1980 Honda Prelude Silver, by the way. Loved it, but it happened to be a manual, and I wanted the car so it had a sunroof. Oh my gosh, they don't make those anymore. They don't make them like they used to. And you know what? I wanted to drive that car so bad. I think I was willing to do whatever it took at that time to learn how, but I couldn't teach myself. See, that was the thing. So every time I would turn the car on, I'd try to bring the clutch up, it would stall, and it would feel like I was hitting a, block wall or something like that, and I'd jerk back. And, finally it was my mom who got in the car with me and took me to a parking lot and showed me how to, shift into gears, how to go into reverse, and, how to kind of learn and feel the car until I could finally drive it. The same thing, right? The same thing with riding a bike. I mean, think about it. Think about how awkward, how challenging, how frustrating, how daunting, how scary and exhilarating all at the same time, right? Yep. There's so much going on. And just think of the person who was there holding the back of your seat, just cheering you on. They couldn't wait for you to find your balance. They couldn't wait for you, and they were there for you when you fell off and skid your knee, right?
Yeah, right.
Because anytime we are going to stretch and learn and grow, really we need to we need to lean in with someone who can partner with us, who has either been there before or who has that skill of learning, of teaching us how, to drive. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, learning. I remember learning to drive a stick for the first time and stalling so many times at a light that the light changed colors. So,
and the people behind you.
Nightmare. Yes. Nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
So I can appreciate that.
And then on the flip side of that nightmare, what happens? Like all of a sudden, like it just clicks and you get it, and years go by and you're like, wow, what was once really daunting and really uncomfortable has become second nature to me.
Sure.
It's become a part of me. I can do this,
Yeah. Well, and that's what kind of translating that back to having someone there for that process, right? You've done this for thousands of hours in communicating and walking people through kind of where they're at, but also, what's amazing is that, a lot of times I feel like we have a vision for, what that person is trying to kind of accomplish and do. And of course you can't do it for them, but you're also, we're rooting for people to be successful on this program because 100%. We've seen, through ourselves from transformations, but more so, we've seen so many successes with, how much lighter and happier and, someone is on the other side of that. And it's not because they weigh 20 pounds less. It's because of that transformation and process that they've gone through over those 6 weeks on doing something hard and accomplishing it and knowing that, the hope that they have for what life can look like now. Right? I just did a video on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. Right? I put a weight vest on with 20 or 30 pounds and worked out in it. And I'm like, I can't believe the difference of carrying around 20 or 30 pounds for, 30 minutes or an hour workout. I can't imagine doing that all day, every single day. And, not just as a chiropractor, the effect that it has on your knees and back and joints, but mentally, when you're 20 or 30 pounds heavier and now you can, or lighter, and you can go up the stairs and you're not feeling as winded, and you can, right? I've just had somebody who's going through the program tell me that, right? Like, I'm feeling the effects of not weighing so much. That's huge. It gives them hope that they can start to do the things that they have kind of put off as not being able to do anymore.
Exactly.
So that's super encouraging from what I've, been able to kind of tell through this. So what is, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, but when people come in on their weekly check-ins, right? So we've got the foundation program, people are coming in and checking in week to week. You make changes and guidance and kind of change that guidelines, whether it's eat more of this or don't eat more of this. We're taking weight and measurements every week because we want to see, first of all, we want to see those small wins. Right? So, that's another thing that, I just did a podcast on lessons learned from doing a lot of the training I've been doing. And one of them were, recognize the small wins and, understanding that, this little success, lots of little success ends up being, 20 pounds and 20 inches lost in 6 weeks.
It really does. And it is. And so it's important to just remind yourself, right? Because it's so easy to think 6 weeks ahead from now, rather than just, and like you said, like what insight you gain through the process is more valuable than the end result, almost, you know, because because for that end result, that's what creates lasting forever change, because once it's become a part of who you are and your experience, it changes everything.
That's great. So what is who's someone that you feel like has made one of the most significant changes? That accountability probably had a super vital role, right? We've seen dramatic weight loss stories. Right? But there's other stories, in some of the clients that we've seen that are, more powerful than I lost 35 pounds. It's a lot of the other baggage or weight that people are carrying around.
I remember one thing that comes to mind is I was speaking with someone who we had gotten to a certain place and began to slow stall. So it was happening over and over and over again. And I remember asking her, okay, so the last time you were here in this place at this weight, what was going on in your life? And she started to tell me that she had just had her baby. The baby was premature. The baby was a miracle baby because the baby survived a very premature, birth. And that mother had spent an entire year of her life not sleeping, just making sure that that baby was breathing through the night. I'm sure, if you're a mom out there, you can really identify with that. And she went to her doctor, and she was slowly gaining weight. And she had gotten up to this certain weight, which we had arrived at, that had actually initially been a significant loss. And she was talking through this, and she went to her doctor and told her doctor, I'm gaining weight, and I don't know what's wrong, and, there's, nothing I can do. And he pretty much looked at her and said, there's no excuses for, gaining weight and eating, garbage. And it really threw her back, and it should have, and I'll tell you why. When you go a year without sleeping, your cortisol hormones are always going to be on. Yep. And cortisol and insulin loop. Insulin's a storage hormone. So no matter what, and I just, and what is so vital about this is sometimes you just need to hear the truth of how your body works rather than accepting somebody else's own subjective opinion as truth.
Sure.
So we spoke right to that, and really spoke to the fact that, she was cortisol insulin looping. I don't care who you were, and I don't care what she would have been eating at that time. And that was another thing. She was on a plan. She was on an eating plan, right? And so she was abiding by the plan, doing exactly what she was supposed to be doing, and continued to gain weight when really nothing would have helped that at that time. She was adrenally spent. She was in adrenal fatigue or failure at that point. And at that point, we would have needed to address the adrenals to actually gain any significant loss in weight. So just being able to speak truth, these things come to mind sometimes because that was so freeing. It set her so free, and just being able to come back to that place and have the appropriate response to that, specific human being that she should have had, but
Sure.
she couldn't have because it just puts you in a state of shock. But working through that progress and being able to let that go and move forward was huge. So that comes to mind for me too.
Awesome. Another one is a person who's been in the office for a lot of years.
Yes.
And
almost since this practice began.
Certainly since I was have taken over, and that's been 10 years ago. But we in the office have tried a lot of programs with her. I know she's been on Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, and
she did 21-day purification.
Yep, she did. She's done every program that I know of, and before COVID, she did two rounds of ChiroThin, saw amazing changes.
Yes.
Really significant weight loss, and more so inches than anything else.
Yes.
And she was really concerned about maintenance and keeping it off, because so often, that's everyone's number one concern.
Yes.
Almost before they start the program, certainly once they start losing weight, is how do I not gain all this back?
It's such a valid concern. So many people have been yo-yo dieting and have failed so many times, and we'll talk about failure.
Yeah. So, she finished right before COVID started, and, we just saw her again a couple weeks ago, and she has pretty much maintained.
Yes.
Which, through knowing this person and through COVID, everyone else has gained 15 to 20 pounds.
Yes.
And, someone who previously struggled with maintaining or keeping weight off has been able to do it through arguably the most difficult time in the world to not gain weight is when you can't leave your house and, this grocery stores are only stocked with bad food.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. So that, I think that comes to mind for me as far as, one of the largest testimonies that I've seen about, number one, why accountability and maintenance is important, but number two, the program works
Yes.
when you follow the program.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
We actually have a little pinky promise sheet that I have everybody fill out before starting the program, because you really want to be in that space. You really want, to want this. And there are some things to be discussed, like we just talked about the fear of failure, the fear of failure or the fear of succeeding, because you've never done that before. So, can you maintain that success? Like, what does that look like?
To lose it and then,
right.
I don't have that success of losing weight and then that success be taken from me.
That's right.
By gaining it back.
Exactly. And a lot of that is working through a lot of subconscious limiting beliefs that we gain preferences to without even knowing it, that are really important to just, dial in on it and just speak the truth to it, because it's those things. It's kind of like, well, this is going to be too hard. That's one of them. It doesn't have to be hard. As a matter of fact, this was designed not to be quite as hard as you think, because of the supplements that come alongside of us that we're using with the ChiroThin actually puts us in a state of satiety, and it puts us in a space of safety. It actually is protecting all of our lean body mass. So, if we come to the table with, I'm not even going to try because it's going to be too hard, like that's a self-limiting belief that serves you playing smaller, than you need to be playing, or, what if I lose all this weight? So then you're afraid to succeed, and then I can't maintain it because that's going to be too hard. Well, it doesn't need to be hard. Again, it doesn't need to be hard. It becomes a part of who you are.
That's right. Changing identities.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of power in that.
There is.
Identity change.
Yes.
Over, again, it's a process, but, giving people the hope that is possible.
It's so awesome.
It's freeing for so many people.
It is. It just, because then you start to understand that, like, there's not one thing that you couldn't really accomplish if you really understood the way that your mind was working. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about the power of the subconscious mind and how it really generates 90% of our beliefs without us even knowing about it, which is wild. One of such is if I really feel, and that's another thing, is just we're just leaning in with your body, trying to bring it from a space of fear to love, understanding that you're going to reach this point where you can actually say, I love my body. My body is beautiful. I love who I am. I love who I am even at this moment, and I am going to love myself through change. It's all of those things. But if you really believe that you are undeserving and unworthy of love, you're going to have a hard time loving yourself. You're going to have a hard time with relationships. You're going to either not be in relationship, or if you really feel that you're not deserving of love, you'll seek out a painful relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those very subconscious thoughts that we don't even understand that we're actually entertaining.
Yeah. Well, and something that you were just talking about is, kind of those small wins and setting yourself up for that. And we see this so much with people who come in, and obviously everyone wants to lose weight, right, in 3 areas, their thighs, their waist, their arms. But understanding and being able to help guide someone through the fact that you've lost weight and your body is intelligent, and it's going to pull weight from the areas that it needs to first. Right? And so that's going to be visceral fat first. And so I can't tell you.
Describe what visceral fat is for.
Okay, yeah. So you've got adipose, right, which is around your belly, your thigh. That's the fat that you can see. Visceral fat is the fat that collects internally around your organs. So the most common example is people say, or they've been diagnosed with fatty liver. That is visceral fat that has been surrounding your liver. Oftentimes you'll see it around the pancreas, the gallbladder, in the internal organs. So that's called visceral fat. your body, you're going to lose visceral fat first because it's the most unhealthy.
That's right.
Right? So the external fat doesn't look good.
That's right.
However, visceral fat is extremely more unhealthy than the other types of fat.
That's right.
And so your body's going to ensure that you lose it there because that's what sets you up for greater longevity.
Yes.
And so that's where you see the changes in LDL levels and glucose levels and insulin levels.
Yes.
And losing the visceral fat is, as we look at true markers of health,
yes,
you're going to see more of that down the road, taking imaging of people internally to measure visceral fat.
Right.
I mean, there's a stark difference between images of people who are healthy and unhealthy, and the amount of visceral fat that they have. And so it's discouraging for people when they may be losing weight, but they're not losing inches in the right places.
Right.
Right? They don't want to lose it other places.
Right.
Their necks or, other places.
Right.
They want to lose it, in those three most common areas.
Right.
However, having those weekly check-ins lets people, number one, see that progress.
Right.
But number two, lets you guide them through, look, we're going to see those inches fall from those areas.
Right.
People don't know what visceral fat is.
No.
They don't know that they're going to lose it in certain areas before other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having that coaching makes them feel better about,
Yes.
I'm on the right track.
That's right.
Essentially that's what everyone wants to know when they come in is, am I still going the right direction?
That's right.
Am I still okay where I'm at right now? And that validation gives people the resources, number one, because you can make course corrections.
Right.
But number two, it gives them the validation that you're doing the right thing. Your hard work is paying off.
Yes.
You're not out in left field.
Right.
Yes. Because Lord knows they've looked at every other plan on the internet and the 50 different best-selling books in Barnes and Nobles or Amazon on losing weight, and one says eat all meat, the other one says don't ever eat meat, and
so true.
It's absolutely confusing.
Yes.
And so to have the validation that yes, you're on the right path, you're doing a good job.
That's right.
That's really, I think, one of the most critical things besides the course correction that can happen from week to week, so that somebody doesn't get on the wrong path.
Right.
But I think that's the, one of the biggest, successes of this accountability and these weekly check-ins that I see from the outside.
Yes.
And hearing people come out of consultations with you is, a sigh of relief, like, whew.
Yes.
I may be cheated, but I'm still, I haven't lost it all.
That's right. Oh my gosh, and that's a big one. So if you ever sit with me, I'll make you put your hand over your heart and say, I am a chooser and not a cheater, because we don't elude ourselves and who we are with anything that can violate ourselves. So it's fun. And then we talk about, so I chose, and then we talk about I am capable of making good choices. I'm only one choice away from making a good choice. And we also talk about how how they can trust themselves to make that good choice. They're capable of making good choices, right? Yes.
I think I need to be in here a little more often. Oh man, this is awesome. So anything else regarding accountability and why it's really vital, magical to the recipe for success?
Yes, I feel like it's the magic recipe for success, period, in no matter what part of life you're in.
Yeah.
No matter what you're involved in, no matter what you're doing. We all need to partner with someone to lean in. You know what the truth is the truth is also there's just that power in setting aside that time and that appointment where you've carved it out that's specifically for you. And then there is a lot to be said of, you know, what you invest in something. Because I am going to show up. If I invested into this appointment, you better believe I'm going to show up, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to, you know, give it my all and do everything I can do on my end. And I'm going to do everything I can do on my end, which makes it magic. Like, you know, I'm just here to partner. Like you said, your body knows what to do. Your body knows how to release weight. We just have to tap into that. When you get a cut, you get a wound, your body knows exactly what to do. You break a bone, you put it in some plastic, it grows back together. It knows exactly what to do. You just need to be reminded that you could, you know, trust some of that, you know, intuition. And it does, it gets all, you know, what's a good word? Just like it gets all whatever, confused and all that other stuff, you know. It does, because there's all that information coming in and you don't know what to do anymore because of the hundreds of books and the Instagram pages and all of the different, you know, Facebook
get quick
thing.
yeah
So it gets
Yep.
and
Well, and what's also great is there's varying levels, there's degrees of engagement that people can choose from.
Sure.
For this accountability, right? So we've got the 6 weeks, and that's included in all of the packages. But because of people's histories and kind of what we've realized is maintenance is so vital for so many people, and they've tried so many things previously,
right,
and then fallen off the wagon right away. Built into the pricing are options for people that they can just do the 6 weeks and then
right,
you know, maintain on their own. They can include maintenance visits where they're coming in, and you know, visits are a little more spread out at that point, but you're helping them find that lock-in phase and find that true metabolic set point. And then from there, how do they keep maintaining that? And so we have people do all different levels just based on their prior history and you know, what they're most comfortable with,
right,
and what's going to set them up ultimately for, you know, that long-term consistent lifestyle change, which is what we're most interested with for people. And typically, if they're honest, you know, in money, we're not an object. You know, everyone, of course, wants to see those long-term lasting lifestyle changes.
Right.
And so it is tremendously better to invest a little bit in that now than, you know, again, keep putting it off and putting it off until, you know, some magic future that's right, you know, that I'll do it then.
That's right.
Which never comes around.
Exactly. That's why, like, getting started and stepping out and taking actions makes the conditions perfect, and not the other way around. Not just kind of waiting for the stars to align and everything to be in order. It's just that stepping out, you know, is what actually allows everything else to follow. Yeah.
Well, and if there's any better time to do it, there is no better time, right? There, you know, there is a definite need for, so, you know, at least 65% of the population to evaluate what their health has looked like over the last number of years, and, you know, understand that it's not too late to make significant changes. And so often it starts with what you're fueling your body with.
That's right.
So, and that's what, you know, you learn in this 6-week program is, you know, what you're going to understand what good fuel is and what bad fuel is.
100%.
And, you know, how ultimately that makes, you know, long-term lifestyle improvements.
Yes.
So we've got, again, there's a couple options. We've got a couple classes coming up for that you can engage with soon. If those don't work, or you're listening to this later, you can begin the program anytime. There's not a certain start date or stop date for people as they go through this process. But for people's conveniences, we're holding online classes via Zoom the next week or two. And if those don't work for you, please reach out. We are happy to set up a free consultation with Angela. She'll go through the entire process with you, make sure it is a good fit for you, make sure that you have everything that you need to be able to get started with the program, and back on the road to better health.
Yes.
Awesome. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think that's
Awesome.
it up.
We will see you next time on Up the Ladder.